So I was talking with a friend of our show, Brad Spencer, head coach of
Oh
North
yeah.
Central College, and he says to me, "Hey,
Hey,
is
coach.
this you?" Clearly breaking down film
Yep.
right now. Okay,
Yes, indeed.
so,
Look at that.
this "Where's Frank, Where's Waldo" thing that happens during these football games is becoming a little stalkerish. I got to admit, this is a little weird to me. The third
I was watching the
division.
games from my living room, and I was like going, "Hey," I was like, "Hey, Jen, there's Frank." She's like, "Oh yeah."
The third division has me like as an audio file, and I think they're going to do a meme of me or emoji of me or something like that. It's like, listen, I think we're going a little too
The
far with
goat.
this whole, me getting around to too many games thing lately. We are going to, though, have a North Central guest on our show on Friday. We're not going to tell you who yet, but we will tell you
Yes,
or
we
tease it
are.
right now. So, Coach Spencer, I did ask him, I'm like, hey, you ready for the triple option? And looking forward to it, he says, although there are challenges, no doubt. And what would you expect them to say at that point? But it'll be a unique experience, I think, for a North Central team having to go against a triple option team in that manner. And a spread option team in Salisbury hosting a Mount Union team. I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves here, but there's some interesting matchups on the horizon. And picking the one to go to was not easy. I know which one it'll be. I won't tell you until we get to the other side of the open here. But nonetheless, JB, we had some great action through week 3 of the playoffs in the round of 16. So let's go. It's week, what is this, 14 review
14?
show? Yeah. Yeah. Think of it. 3 rounds of playoffs, 11 weeks of regular season. I know.
14.
Week
Yeah.
14 review show of season 17 of In the Huddle. So JB, we had some great action. We got to talk about first before we really jump ahead here to the impacts, the games we're going to see in the quarterfinals and where they're going to be hosted and everything else. We're going to do a little bit of a deep dive into those things. I think we have to. Technically, we're supposed to do Tales of the Tape, I think, on Friday for the quarterfinals. Although we'll see what we can come up with.
Better
We've
get
both
cracking.
been absolutely buried on our personal lives and professional lives. Oh, it's been a week. But here we are, hopefully getting this out on Wednesday evening, which is a little earlier than normal. If I can pull it off, we'll see what happens. But before anything else, we got to get your 30,000-foot view of Week 14, which is the third week of the playoffs. Hit it, my friend, your 30,000-foot view.
Well, it was interesting after week 13 or round 2 when the home teams, and I guess technically higher seeded favorites, went 15-1. Round 3 was the revenge of the road dogs as they won 5 of the 8 games, and I only won 3 out of my 8 picks because of that. I was like, oh, I guess I should go with the road teams. Bad strategy for me, but a good strategy for Frank as he picked a lot of the road dogs and went 6-2, one of the best predictions of the weekend. He got a lot of the big ones right, like UMHB. You got Bethel. I think you also called the Hopkins win over DePauw, so congratulations to the mayor. This is just one of those things. These playoffs have been sort of completely unexpected, and there are some folks, mostly in the Midwest, who think their brand of football is better than everyone else, and they have models that prove it going back 20 years. Well, guess what? There's 3 Region 2 teams in the quarterfinals. There's 1 Region 1 team in the quarterfinals. I think for the first time since the year 2000, Springfield's back all the way to the Elite 8, which is crazy. What a run that they've had. knocking off the defending champs. I got a lot of salty comments from people that kind of misinterpreted a tweet I made about the number of injuries affecting Cortland. A lot of I'll say something, this side hurt people that maybe took it too literally. I know everyone's banged up in the playoffs. I know that Springfield was playing with a backup quarterback. I'm just saying that, this time of year that stuff happens, and, Springfield is going to win that game no matter what, but Cortland's injuries did play into the outcome, just like injuries play into every outcome. I mean, last season in the Stag Bowl, they didn't have their number one cover corner All-American, and, some of the big touchdowns that Cortland had were against the backup. So what are you going to do? That's how football is. I get it. But, man, some of the overreactions of fans, that's why I guess they call them fanatics, Frank. It's a lot of fun to interact with them, and we have a little tete-a-tete here and there. That's what makes this job fun.
We'll talk about, though, a little bit of how the injury played out, one major injury in that game. You'll see it in crunch time as we break down one play in particular that I think was caused by a little bit of the injury situation that they were experiencing. So, nonetheless here, JB, let's start to get things moving here. And that means we're going to go to crunch time for the 14th week of the season, the third week of the playoffs. It's 2024 Division III college football season. In the upper left bracket, Susquehanna took on St. John's. And in the second quarter, 7:54 left, Susquehanna's Josh Ehrlich gets a 1-yard touchdown run to make it 10-7, St. John's leading. 15 seconds later, though, Riley Schwellenbach gets an 89-yard pass from Aaron Severson for a touchdown. That extends the St. John's lead to 17-7 at that point. Second quarter, still 2:34 left. Dominic Bourgeois gets a 43-yard field goal for Susquehanna to at least make the score closer, 17-10. But just before halftime, Susquehanna equalizes. 10 seconds left for Rashawn Lamons, a 2-yard touchdown run. We'd go to halftime tied at 17. Continuing to the third quarter, 12:01 left. Dylan Wheeler gets a 10-yard touchdown pass from Aaron Severson, 24-17 at that point. But here comes Susquehanna. 8:24 left third quarter. Rashawn Lamons, his second touchdown, this one from 17 yards. And we'll take another look at this one. His body never touched the ground aside from his feet and his hands here. What a play by him. Third quarter, 1:22 left. Kyle Howes, a 1-yard touchdown pass from Josh Ehrlich, makes it 31-24 Susquehanna, their first lead of the half. Fourth quarter, 9:15 left. Rashawn Lamons, his third touchdown of the day, a 30-yard touchdown run. 38-24 is the Susquehanna lead, but St. John's rallies back. 6:39 left fourth quarter. Joey Gendro gets a 16-yard touchdown pass from Aaron Severson to make it 38-31. Susquehanna still leading, but 3:31 left fourth quarter. Marcelio Mendez gets a 19-yard touchdown pass from Severson to tie the game, 38 apiece. But watch this ensuing drive by Susquehanna. First, a 3rd and 7 from their own 28, complete to Michael Robbins for 16 yards and a first down. Then a 3rd and 2. Ehrlich finds Robbins again for 16 yards to the St. John's 32-yard line. 2nd and 1 from the St. John's 23. Josh Ehrlich gets 2 yards, and they decide to take the clock down to 2 seconds for a field goal by Dominic Bourgeois from 37 yards out. It is good. 41-38. The walk-off field goal gives Susquehanna the victory. Severson, 37 for 46, 466 yards passing, and 5 passing touchdowns. Rashawn Lamons, 29 rushes, 176 yards, and those 3 touchdowns you saw. Also, Bethel at Wartburg. 10:59 left in the first quarter. Aaron Ellingson gets a 7-yard touchdown pass from Cooper Drews to make it a 7-0 Bethel lead. But 16 seconds later, Jagger Schmidt gets a 55-yard touchdown pass from Riley Richards, and Wartburg is tied at this point, 7 apiece. Bethel would add a field goal midway in the second quarter, make it 10-7, but just before halftime, 24 seconds left, Joey Kidder gets a 14-yard touchdown pass from Cooper Drews, 17-7 at that point in favor of Bethel at halftime. Third quarter, about 5.5 minutes left, and Wartburg trying to make a comeback. Here's an interception by Keenan Tyler to the 25-yard line. One play later, it's Jagger Schmidt again. 25-yard touchdown pass from Richards makes it 17-14. Bethel still leading. Go to the fourth quarter, 14 seconds into it. Big play here. Matt Young, a 59-yard interception return for a touchdown. The pick six made it 24-14. Bethel leading. Then 1:24 left fourth quarter, 4th and 8 play here by Wartburg, and it is an interception by Isaac Call, and that would do it. Bethel wins 24-14. Riley Richards, 14 for 30, 177 yards, 2 passing touchdowns, and 3 interceptions. Matt Young, 59-yard pick six, was an important play in the second half. JB, I'll tell you, Dominic Bourgeois, ice water, really. You saw the long field goal earlier in the game, and then the game winner, the walk-off, ultimately. More power to him. But Aaron Severson's numbers, 466 yards and 5 touchdowns in a loss in the playoffs to Susquehanna. That was just a heck of a game. And then also Bethel kind of dominating Wartburg. Talk about those two games. I have a feeling you're keying more toward the Susquehanna game, though.
Yeah, that was definitely a big one, and it was considerably sort of viewed as a bigger upset than maybe some of the other things that we saw. I mean, Susquehanna did come into the game ranked number 6, and Johnnies were number 3, but ultimately it was both teams were just taking shots and scoring. Rashawn Lamons for Susquehanna had a heck of a game, and really it was the Johnnies' inability to bottle him up. He just kept making plays, and Susquehanna just kept sort of pushing and pushing and pushing. And even though Severson was able to respond, with his passing game, the Riverhawks just made just enough stops to get them in the position to win the game. And I mean, I didn't see Susquehanna hosting a home game at this stage in the playoffs, Frank. So a pretty incredible run for them, and so no surprise that Coach Perk was just named the Region 2 Coach of the Year by D3Football.com, and what a heck of a job that he's done with this program. I know they've had a few sort of false starts in the playoffs the last couple of years. Well, here they are, 1 game away from the semifinals and 2 games away from a national championship, and they just took down the number 1, well, technically I think overall seed in the tournament. So why not? They're playing with house money. They could go all the way.
And that means Bethel will be traveling to Susquehanna, as you alluded to, and so it should be an interesting battle there. Wartburg's offense was kind of the bugaboo we knew a little bit this season, and you got to give them credit, though. I didn't think they go as far as they did this season. I thought Coe might have actually edged them Central in that conference, but they still rose to the occasion. Congratulations to that Wartburg team on their season. Let's go to the lower left-hand side of the bracket. The game I attended, Springfield at Cortland. 8:52 left, first quarter. Drew Heenan gets a 1-yard touchdown run for Springfield to make it an early 6-0 lead for the Pride. Then, 1 play later from offense, it's Jason Ziva, a 71-yard touchdown pass from Zach Boys, 7-6, Cortland led. The ensuing kickoff, though, would be taken to the 1-yard line by Springfield. 1 play later, Arsen Shatefan, 13-7 is what the score would be after his 1-yard touchdown run. Then the ensuing kickoff was fumbled back to Springfield, so 7 plays after that, Blaine Hart, a 4-yard touchdown run, makes it 20-7 Springfield with 5:31 left in the first quarter. 2:29 left in the first, and Zach Boys on a 4th and 5 play thinks he's escaped a sack, but he gets sacked for a 27-yard loss, and that's a big play there. But on the next possession, you will see that a bad snap for a punt by Springfield gives a chance back to Cortland. Then 9:03 left second quarter, Ethan Gallagher gets a 2-yard touchdown run to cut the deficit down to a 20-14 margin as Springfield still led. Big plays here. You'll see Zach Boys, who's had some knee issues, it looked like, throughout this game. 5:25 left. He rushes for 1 yard, and he stays down for a little bit with his knee, but gets up, and in the next play, can't plant well, and is intercepted by Colby Richardson at the Springfield 21-yard line. Richardson gets it back to midfield. 1:29 left in the second quarter. It's Arsen Shatefan again, a 9-yard touchdown run. 27-14, Springfield leading, but just before halftime, Cortland has an answer. Jaden Alfano St. John, a 1-yard touchdown pass from boys, makes it a 27-21 halftime lead for Springfield, but Cortland trying to come back. And they do come back with 5 minutes gone in the third quarter. Here's a Zach Boys 1-yard touchdown run for another Cortland lead. Again, 1 point, 28-27. 9:25 left. That's 30 seconds later in the third quarter. Drew Heenan with a 55-yard touchdown run to respond. Springfield takes the lead back 34-28. 6 minutes left third quarter. Again here on a fourth down play, Zach Boys is sacked, this time for an 11-yard loss, and that is back to the midfield stripe. And in the third quarter, 2:46 left. You'll also see Boys get intercepted, this time by Tyler Palladino at the Springfield 20. Big plays there as Cortland just couldn't get their feet underneath them to come back again in this game. Fourth quarter, 2:50 left. You'll see a big play here. Blaine Hart, he gets a 46-yard run. There were some complaints that this was an illegal formation play, but it counted nonetheless, and that put Springfield in business. Just 39 seconds later, Hart with a 5-yard touchdown run for a 40-28 lead, and that would do it. Springfield shocks the nation by beating Cortland 40-28. Zach Boys, 19 for 36, 325 yards, 2 passing touchdowns, and 1 rushing touchdown, but also 2 interceptions. Arson Shtefan, 29 rushes, 148 yards, 2 rushing touchdowns. Finally, on the left side of the brackets, Hope at North Central. We were tied at 7-7 late in the first half. 3:26 left in the second quarter. Joe Sacco with 6-yard touchdown run made it 14-7 North Central. And then with 25 seconds left, just 3 minutes later, Thomas Skokna with a 3-yard touchdown pass from Luke Lanen made it 21-7 at halftime in favor of North Central. Eventually it would be 24-7 midway through the third quarter. 7:02 left third. Grant Holzer, a 22-yard touchdown pass from Ben Wellman, gets it closer, 24-14, Hope trailing by 10. Then 2.5 minutes later, Luke Lanen responds with a 26-yard touchdown run to make it a 31-14 North Central lead. With 3:36 left in the third quarter, big play here. Joe Sacco with a 40-yard gain to the Hope 26, dashing any hopes of a comeback by Hope. And it would lead to a field goal. Hope would never get the momentum back. As you'll see here, 12:02 left fourth quarter. Ben Wellman intercepted by Jamar Daniel. That led to a touchback, and it also led to an 8-minute drive that's capped by this big play, the Luke Lanen jump pass to Bobby Beamer, and that would do it as North Central would win 41-21. Ben Wellman, 250 total yards, 2 passing, 1 rushing touchdowns, 2 interceptions for Hope. Joe Sacco for North Central, 19 rushes, 120 yards, and 1 rushing touchdown. Well, being there, seeing what developed there, when you see a 40-28 game, but it starts out 20-7 Springfield, obviously, spotting a team like Springfield 13 points when you're probably going to lose the time of possession and you're going to, pay for any turnover you give up in a game, that was just a recipe for disaster. And then you saw the Zach Boys knee situation followed by the interception when he couldn't really plant well on the other leg. And so, it's, as you said, there are a multitude of things that go into, determining the result of a game. Clearly, Zach Boys was trying to game it out there, and whatever he did in the Endicott game, I'm not sure what it was. He alluded to something in the post-game press conference, something unnecessary he had done in that game that hurt his team ultimately. You just got to look at this situation and be like, you wish he was at 100% so that maybe it would have been a 40-39 game at the end of the day or something even different. Who knows? But hats off to Zach Boys. He's changed Division III football. Yep, he's done something with his teammates, as I said on Twitter, that you just can't fully embrace even right now. You'll look back at it in 5 years and understand maybe what changed thanks to that Cortland run last year and even this year to a certain degree. Kudos to Springfield. Now they got a real mountaintop to get across, and that's at Naperville, Illinois, North Central. Any thoughts on the action on this part of the bracket?
Well, once again, kind of similar to Cortland. I mean, North Central doesn't need to win the time of possession battle because they can score very quickly. They can You know, they have got Sacco who can break long runs. They've got Lennon who can beat you with his arm and his leg. So yeah, if I'm Springfield, you want to chew up the clock. You want to, you know, give Shetefan as many carries as he possibly can and keep that Cardinals defense out there as long as you can, because you know the Cardinals will be able to score quickly. They rarely turn the ball over, if ever, so you're not going to get a likely interception or a fumble that you might have saw in the Cortland game because of the injury. So yeah, I think the Cardinals are definitely, you know, the favorites in this one, but Springfield has certain elements, and I don't believe that the Cardinals have ever seen a triple option offense. You know, most Midwestern teams do not play this. It's typically kind of service academy or certain kind of smaller, you know, East Coast type of football. But you know, it'll be interesting to see. The Springfield team is very experienced. They've got a lot of fourth and fifth year seniors. You know, these are 22, 23-year-old guys that really know how to run the system well. Drew Heenan made me a believer. I didn't really know much about the guy going into this game against Cortland. He really showed up big and made some plays. We'll talk a little more about him later, I'm sure.
Are you foreshadowing, perhaps? We'll find out. Let's go to the upper right-hand part of the bracket and talk about those games. We start off on the right side of the brackets with the upper right, UMHB at Linfield. Only first quarter scoring was a Linfield field goal, so 9 seconds into the second quarter, Mary Hardin-Baylor takes a lead as Cameron Ferguson gets a 51-yard touchdown run for a 7-3 lead over Linfield. Second quarter still, 12:25 left after a punt return was turned over by Linfield. Here's Reynes Daramola with an 18-yard touchdown pass from Jake Wright to make it 14-3. The Crusaders were rolling. Third quarter, 1 minute into it, here's Asa Osborne, third play of the half. He gets a 68-yard touchdown run to make it 21-3. Crew leading over the Wildcats. We'll go 4 minutes later as Linfield responds. Luke McNabb finds Will French for a 3-yard touchdown pass to make it 21-10, shrinking the lead. And then, just about 3 minutes later, Jake Wright is intercepted by Chance Sparks, and Linfield with a much better opportunity suddenly to try to come back in this game. In the first play of the fourth quarter, Luke McNabb scores on a 4-yard touchdown run to make the score much closer, 21-18. Linfield gets into field goal range with a possibility to tie with about 6 minutes left, but after a holding call for 1st and 20, puts the ball at the UMHB 35-yard line. Blake Eaton is intercepted by Demarion Morris, who rumbles 71 yards to the Linfield 9-yard line. What a momentum changer that play was, as 2 plays later, Jake Wright finds the end zone from 7 yards out to make it 28-18 Crew. Then a last-ditch attempt about 2 minutes later by Linfield, a 4th and 14 play. Blake Eaton is intercepted by Morris, his second interception of the fourth quarter, puts the game away 28-18. The Crew win. Eaton, 19 for 34 for Linfield, 220 yards, 2 interceptions. Asa Osborne for UMHB, 17 rushes, 102 yards, and 1 rushing touchdown. Also in the upper right, Johns Hopkins at DePauw. Second quarter, a minute and a half into it, Jeff Schroeder, a 2-yard touchdown run, makes it 7-0, Johns Hopkins leading. 2.5 minutes later, E.J. Tellerico finds a 64-yard touchdown pass from James Ranello to extend that lead by the Blue Jays 14-0. Here's a big play with 6:50 left in the second quarter. Nathan McCahill, as DePauw looked like they're about to score, is intercepted by Jack Schondelmeyer. It looked like Luca Lutzel did a great job helping get it deflected to him for the touchback. But then 4 minutes later, you'll see here James Ranello is sacked for a loss of 7 yards on 4th and 5 and a turnover on down, so we would remain at 14-0 at halftime. Here's an interesting call. Third quarter, 11:36 left. You'll see McCahill pass short to Caden Whitehead, who looks like he may have hit the pylon. They mark him out of the 2-yard line. A closer look says that he probably did earn a touchdown there, but they couldn't get the touchdown in ensuing plays, so Matthew Berry gets a 23-yard field goal for DePauw to make it 14-3, Hopkins leading. A minute into the fourth quarter, Robbie Ballantyne, a 32-yard touchdown pass from Nathan McCahill, made it closer, 14-9. But you'll see here that the McCahill rush attempt for 2 is no good. So still 14-9 at that point. Here with 10:52 left, you'll see the defense of Johns Hopkins again. Carson Bordeaux intercepts Nathan McCahill, and that would really make things tough for DePauw as it led to a 17-play, 9-minute drive. But here's J.P. Furman's 40-yard field goal attempt, and it's no good with 1:47 left, so DePauw will have a chance here. 3rd and 10 from their own 23, and Nathan McCahill finds 15 yards on the ground for a first down to his 38-yard line. And then on a 3rd and 1 play from his 47, Nathan McCahill again, 11 yards to the Johns Hopkins 42 and a first down. Then you'll see a 1st and 10 play here, and McCahill is complete to Gabe Quigley for an 11-yard gain to the Johns Hopkins 31-yard line. 2 plays later, McCahill would find Frankie Riccardi at the 1-yard line, and they would spike the ball with 28 seconds left. But wait, they're saying that the clock never started, that there was never a ready for play whistle, so suddenly they had to spike again. It wasn't well communicated. McCahill was looking for help from the sideline. They're saying spike it. He does with 17 seconds left. 2nd down play, it's out of the end zone. Incomplete 3rd down play. McCahill slips down. He tries to get his team back to the line of scrimmage, and there is a penalty flag. It is ultimately for an illegal shift, and we'll show you here that as the last player gets set, the snap immediately comes up instead of waiting 1 second. It is technically by the book the correct call, and as a result, a 10-second runoff kills the clock and gives the win to Johns Hopkins 14-9. What an amazing game, but what an unfortunate ending for DePauw. Nathan McCahill had 334 total yards for DePauw, 1 passing touchdown but 2 interceptions. James Ranello for Hopkins, 24 for 30, 296 yards and 1 passing touchdown. I'll tell you, JB, this is not a criticism of Coach, in this situation, but I have never seen a 2-quarterback system work throughout a season very well, because we've talked to players before, even when a backup quarterback has to come in because of injury or something else, it throws off the blocking scheme, among other things, because of the differences in quarterback play between the 2 quarterbacks. And I think that is what really bit Linfield, because they had a chance at the end of this game. They couldn't get much rhythm in the first half. I think that was lending to some of it. In the second half, they seemed to have fits and starts, and every time they changed quarterback, it seemed to sort of set them back a little bit ultimately. It doesn't mean they don't have 2 great quarterbacks. Don't get me wrong. They're both exceptional athletes, but it does throw off the schemes, I think. No matter how deep in the season you get, it's just an extra element or extra variable that, defenses may get thrown off by it, but if you're throwing off your own offense with it, I think that costs you big. And Mary Hardin-Baylor ultimately with that interception at the end of the game, or 2 interceptions really, but the one that was the backbreaker was to a 71-yard return. I mean, that tells you, I think, a certain level of this defense of Mary Hardin-Baylor is what we expect it to be. The offense had some great moments and some stopped moments too. And I'm curious to see how it goes against Hopkins. In that loss, we're going to talk about that game a little bit more after crunch time about the ending and just play it out for those that don't understand it fully. Mm-hmm. But what do you see here? I know I think you're turning to believer into UMHB more and more week by week here, but what's your thoughts on this action?
Yeah, I mean, it feels like 2004 all over again. Like they just keep finding ways to win tournament games, and even though they kind of backed into the playoffs, and maybe if we were in the old traditional round of 32 without the extra 8 teams and the extra round and all this, that maybe they wouldn't have made the tournament. But they're kind of playing well when they need to and making enough plays. And there was a little moment there. I remember we were texting on Saturday, and you were like, "Uh-oh. Looks like Linfield's about to come back," as you had picked the Crusaders, and you're trying to pick up games on me here. So it was close, but hey, they made the defensive plays down the stretch, and what I think is going to be the storyline for this Hopkins Crusaders game is defense. And we've had conversations with other coaches from the Centennial Conference, and they have talked about how good this Hopkins defense really is. I think I underrated it. Obviously, I thought DePauw was going to win, and honestly, in a way, and like you said, we'll talk about it later, DePauw should have won that game at the end. They blew it. I think they just kind of choked on on the goal line, so to speak. So that's an unfortunate ending for them. But credit Hopkins, they made the plays. They held DePauw to a point total that they hadn't really been able, that no one had been able to do all season. So Hopkins getting to play at home at Homewood is a big deal. But the Crusaders are very experienced and savvy road warriors, and so I think they may be the favorites in this one, actually, which is, interesting, but we'll have to wait and see what happens.
One more quadrant to go here. Let's go to the lower right-hand part of the bracket for the final two games. In the lower right-hand bracket, Randolph-Macon visited Salisbury for their first meeting in 39 years, despite the relative proximity between the programs. Salisbury lost the ball twice in the first quarter, but RMC couldn't cash in. Second quarter, 8:42 left. Salisbury's Micah Brubaker gets a 26-yard touchdown pass from Cyrus McGowan to make it a 7-0 Seagulls lead. 3:48 left second quarter. Here's Ronald Clark with a big 62-yard touchdown run to make it 14-0, Salisbury extending that lead. Then third quarter, 6 minutes into it, Dario Belizaire gets a 6-yard touchdown run for Salisbury to make it 21-0. They're just rolling at that point. 29 seconds left third quarter. Alex Richards, again from Cyrus McGowan, this time from 37 yards, makes it 28-0, the Seagulls leading. Randolph-Macon would try to come back. Fourth quarter, 12:34 left. Holden Hodge, a 17-yard touchdown pass from Dante Casiola, made it 28-7 at that point. Then fourth quarter, 2:47 left. Cullen Martin, an 8-yard touchdown pass from Casiola, 28-14. They would try an onside kick, it would fail. Then one play later, 2:36 left. Cyrus McGowan, the freshman, with a 44-yard touchdown run, and that's the final score, 35-14 Salisbury. Casiola from Randolph-Macon, 22 for 40, 228 yards, 2 passing touchdowns. Cyrus McGowan for Salisbury, 161 total yards, 2 passing and 1 rushing touchdowns on the day. Finally, in the bottom right, Carnegie Mellon at Mount Union. It was 7-7 after the first quarter. 44 seconds into the second quarter, here's a big play. 4th and 5 from the Carnegie Mellon 20, and TJ DeShields is intercepted by Adrian Williams, and that thwarts a surefire scoring attempt by Mount Union. And it led to a 13-play, nearly 7-minute drive in which Joey McGinnis ends it with a 17-yard touchdown run. Carnegie Mellon takes the lead, 13-7, as the extra point is no good. 4:42 left second quarter, Tyler Echeverry gets the lead back for Mount Union with a 13-yard touchdown run, 14-13 at that point in favor of the Purple Raiders. Third quarter, 11:20 left, Ivan Merrick, a 41-yard field goal, makes it a 4-point lead for Mount Union, 17-13. Then 4 minutes later, Tyler Echeverry again, a 2-yard touchdown run, 24-13 Purple Raiders. In the next drive, it was 16 plays, 75 yards over 8 minutes, but Carnegie Mellon ends it with a Reese Kolke 9-yard touchdown pass from Ben Mills. 24-19 is the score at that point in favor of Mount Union. With 10 minutes left, Mount tried to put away the Tartans, but you'll see this 4th and 2 play from the Carnegie Mellon 30-yard line only gains 1 yard for TJ DeShields, and they would take over the ball. The teams would trade punts, giving Carnegie Mellon the ball back with 2:44 left at their own 14-yard line. Here's a 2nd and 7 from their own 17, and Mills is complete to McCullough for a 14-yard gain to the 31-yard line at that point. They would continue 1st and 10, Mills complete to Kolke to the Mount Union 46-yard line for 23 yards, but with 1:25 left, 4th down, they were facing from the Mount 46-yard line, and Ben Mills is sacked for a 9-yard loss by Rossi Moore, and that would do it. Mount Union holds on, 24-19. Ben Mills from Carnegie Mellon, 17 for 29, 187 yards, 2 passing touchdowns. Tyler Echeverry from Mount Union, 27 rushes, 112 yards, and 2 rushing touchdowns. JB, I'll tell you, Carnegie Mellon deserves a lot of credit because we didn't give them a real chance after kind of their backward play, it felt like, or the way they were sort of easy backward.
I thought Ben Mills was beat up, and I wasn't even sure if he was going to play. Like, that's the one thing you don't get in D3 football like you do with NFL or the major colleges. Like, you don't know the injury reports. And you see something happen in the game the week before, and you're like, oh, either he's okay or he's not okay, but you don't know if he's going to play or not until they actually suit up on Saturday.
And, Mount Union, we will have a guest from Mount Union on our Friday show as well, which will be a fun event for us. So we're going for the kind of the old names who are still sticking around the playoffs on our show on Friday. But Salisbury, it can't say enough. A freshman quarterback, Cyrus McGowan, is just lighting things up, and this is going to be a good game.
Yeah.
I look forward to this. I don't know which way it goes because Salisbury's defied logic a certain amount of times this season already. Mount Union, every time you think they're going to be dead for whatever reason, oh no, they're still alive. They're still Mount Union. I mean, think about it. Mount Union, Mary Hardin Baylor, North Central, all still alive. It feels like we're all replaying the last decade or so, a certain level here, because of those names still being here, maybe the late 20-teens, when those were the three names that we had to look at. But JB, that is crunch time for week 14 of the Division III college football season, week 3 of the playoffs, the round of 16. Well, as you know, it's time for your MVPs, and I think you did a great job picking the MVPs here. It's kind of funny. I'm going to go to your defensive pick real quick first here. The fact is, the price may be right for UMHB because their quarterback and their defensive end, right? If I'm not mistaken, are both the rights?
Yeah, you're right. I think so. Now, they just may have the same last name. They may have the same last name, but other than having a great first name, James Wright had 3.5 sacks and tackles for a loss. I guess you can say combined 7, although sometimes people count tackle for a loss and sacks as the same thing, but they mark them differently. But he was a big reason for the struggles that Linfield had in Saturday's game, applying pressure. I know Morris, their defensive back, had a couple of interceptions, including a big one late in the fourth quarter that he returned down to like the 10-yard line or something, which basically put the game away. But it was the defensive line pressure and the play of this graduate defensive end, among the other guys on the defensive line, that really made the difference in the outcome, I think, for UMHB on Saturday up in Oregon. On the flip side, offensively, I mentioned this earlier, backup quarterback Drew Heenan came in the biggest game of the year, the biggest win, Coach Sarasolo said on ATN earlier this week for the Springfield program. So, he ran that triple option offense to a T, scored a few touchdowns of his own, and made some big plays down the stretch. So a huge showing for this young man, and he's going to have to try to do it again in Illinois this weekend. It should be a great challenge. And then finally, you mentioned this guy earlier, Frank. He had the game-winning field goal to knock off the number 1 seed in the tournament. So you got to give a shout out to Dominic Bourgeois. Is that how you say his last name, I believe, from Susquehanna? And not a chip shot either. This was like a 37, 38-yarder on a relatively cool day up there in Collegeville. Very clutch kick for a big win, and now Susquehanna is hosting a game in the Elite Eight.
As you alluded to earlier, I gained 3 games on you, and so that means I am now within 2 games. This is not over, and as I said, don't call it a comeback.
2 with 7 to play. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Always keeps it interesting.
We may have some differences on the quarterfinal matchups, the 4 of them coming up on Friday. We'll find out.
Yeah.
They are good games, so I don't expect us to go match 4 for 4 on those picks when it comes to it. Got about 10 minutes here. Let's talk about a few things. First, okay, the ending of DePauw. And it's led to the question a little bit, too, of some aspects of that game, not just the ending, but another aspect about whether or not replay should be introduced to earlier rounds or not. Okay, we'll go back and look at the clip of the touchdown, which should have been the touchdown. I believe Whitehead's, jump and leap for the pylon, and it looks like he did not touch the boundary. And hitting the pylon is enough to be counted as in the end zone, crossing the goal line, the way he hit it especially. So I have to be honest, I think that was a miss, and would it have changed the result of the game? I don't know, because I think Johns Hopkins would have played things differently in the fourth quarter also. It looked like they were trying to play a possession keep-away game and then just score a field goal to go up 8 at the worst. And so I don't know how it plays out if it's different. But, okay, DePauw gets to the 1-yard line, tries to spike the ball. We talked about it in crunch time in the clips themselves. Clearly something went wrong, that there was no ready for play, they felt. But, how they conveyed everything, you could see Coach Dietz asking the question, are we on first down or second down now that we just spiked it again, ultimately? They said, or second down or third down, I guess. And they're like, well, second down, Coach. And he's like, okay. Didn't look thrilled about how this whole thing played out. But, instead of 26 seconds left, which probably would have been the right amount of time, there were 17 seconds left. Second down was the miss on the back of the end zone. I think he was just trying to throw it away because he didn't see anything open, didn't want to waste time. Smart move by McCahill on that one. Third down, he slid. And others have caught the fact that there may have been a receiver that was going to be open in the end zone or a running back that may have easily got into there. But he slipped and can't get the next play off without the team committing a foul. It is a foul because you must be set fully, every player, at least for 1 second before anybody can be in motion, or otherwise it is an illegal shift. And if you have never come set as a team, they will convert the illegal shift into a dead ball false start play. And that inside 2 minutes forces a 10-second runoff. So as a result of that call being made, and it was probably about 0.2 to 0.3 of a second, the snap came up after the last set. It's not enough. And the referee that threw the flag was well within his rights to throw the flag. However, most officials I've spoken with that have seen this have come to the conclusion, including myself, would I ever throw that flag in that situation?
On the final play in a playoff game?
No. If I see them set, and I feel confident enough that they were set before that snap came up, where's the advantage? Where is the advantage for DePauw? They're all off their back feet at this point trying to get set. So they've already kind of done themselves in on that play. It may not have been a successful play either. We don't know because we never got to see it play out. But, the long story short of it, JB, is that, yes, the call could be made, but prudence would suggest not making it. But then other questions came up this week, and I guess my question to you is, under what circumstances would you be okay with a universal replay approach for the first 4 rounds of the playoffs, since we do pick it up in rounds 5 and 6, which are the semifinals in the Stag Bowl now?
Well, I mean, I think these games are, they carry enough weight that probably merit it. I mean, we're on ESPN Plus. There's multiple cameras, and so theoretically they should have the technology to do it. It's not like we're, going to commercial every couple of plays, and it's not going to slow the game down that much, I don't think. So, yeah, why not give one a half, or give a coach challenge or something like that? I mean, for these programs, I mean, this is a big deal. So if there are situations like that touchdown play that probably should have counted, or at the end of the game, that I think that the thing I noticed the most about the sort of social media chatter around the DePauw loss was that kind of like, don't let the officials decide the game, let the players do it. Like, it would have been better if Hopkins just stopped them on 4th down and won the game versus, oh yeah, legal motion, 10-second runoff, game over. So takes it out of the players' hands. I would kind of prefer the old-fashioned way, or win it on the field. But like you said, technically it was the correct call. So there you go.
For me, the NCAA, I think, gave out a $1,000 stipend to teams that were hosting to get additional equipment and labor for the additional camera system and whatnot they would need to pull off an ESPN Plus type of broadcast. Okay. I think that $1,000 isn't enough if you're trying to get to a replay meritable system. Okay, so if they would up that to $2,500 to $3,000 per school, and sort of maybe foresee some of the schools that will be hosting that are almost slam dunks to begin to get the money to them, or at least, figure out how to get the systems beefed up, because you can't do it in 6 days either, between the Sunday selection or bracket show and the Saturday game. That's asking a lot as well. But the long story short is, I think you need the 4 or 5. 5 is honestly my minimum cameras or angles to at least have a shot at having a consistent replay system. We saw 5 camera setups in the semifinals last year at Randolph-Macon and at Wartburg, and I have to be honest with you, neither seemed up to the snuff we needed to call goal line type plays, etc. The delay it takes too, if you don't have quality looks and they have to go through all these different looks to find they have nothing to really go on, does delay the system, does delay this whole thing, because you also need the technology at field level for the referees to look at it, because it wouldn't be DV sport in that situation. So I would say to you that I would support replay if we can create a consistent system, and that's going to cost money for these schools, more than $1,000 at the end of the day. So you need to sort of understand that if you're the NCAA and you're trying to promote this new ESPN Plus thing. But the other thing I'm going to tell you flat out is the consistency in broadcast for ESPN Plus stuff. The graphics aren't even being universally the same, okay? Some are just retaining their normal graphics. Some are using 3 different versions of ESPN graphics. It's like, why didn't they say use this one for a scoreboard banner? I don't get it. And the fonts are, it's like, where is the uniformity that we were trying to achieve, at least on the graphics packages here, and then we can work on beefing up the cameras. Yeah. So this didn't quite work out as well as people anticipated. It's a start. Yeah. We'll figure out the rest of it probably between the seasons. We'll see. Also, Gagliardi Trophy. Okay, we both have to get our ballots in on Friday, and you and I talked about our thoughts. But, for those wondering right now, how are you picking? We have to pick top 3s in our ballots this year, which is, I think, less than normal. I think we used to do top 5s or 4s or something like that in previous years. So top 3 this year makes it a little more difficult. I got to be honest with you. But how are you approaching your ballot, since this is your first time now?
Well, the nice thing is that the J Club does provide voters with pretty substantial amount of information. Like, there are these, packets from the schools with all the details about the statistics, the, GPA, extracurricular, all the kind of stuff that you would need in order to make a decision. They even put something together in a Excel file where you can really just sort of see, line item kind of, each individual, the GPA, the major, the, football statistics, all this kind of stuff. So that's certainly helpful. But there's still, like you said, there's only 3, and you got to go through 16 or so guys. It's a lot, and it's hard to sort of narrow it down to okay, who are the top 3 out of this group of these amazing players? I mean, I'm thinking, last night out in Vegas, you had Luke Lennon and Robert Curry as part of the Campbell Award thing. So I know a lot of people are saying that these guys are getting this kind of recognition. Although it's interesting that Luke didn't get an All-American award from the AFCA. So it's just at the end of the day, I think as much data as we have, there are certain elements of this that are still kind of subjective. We've seen certain players, play kind of above and beyond what we thought. One of the guys in recent weeks that's really impressed me has been Josh Ehrlich from Susquehanna. I mean, this guy just keeps making throws. They're winning games. He's definitely in consideration, at least from my perspective. But there's also Matt Young, the defensive player from Bethel. He had the pick 6 and the Crunchtime highlight we saw there. So it's almost too many guys to choose from. But eventually we just have to decide and mail our vote in and see what happens.
Speaking of Matt Young, I have never covered a Bethel game until this coming Saturday, as I will be going down to Susquehanna to cover Bethel at Susquehanna. Very rare that I'll go down into Pennsylvania twice in a playoff like this to the same place, especially. And this year we will be. It will be, I think, a really good game. Now, just because Susquehanna beat the team that beat Bethel twice this season doesn't mean it carries over. There is no syllogism law in football. We've learned that over the years.
Nope.
And Bethel
it's all about
seems to be playing with the well, Bethel's playing a different brand of football, it feels like, in these playoffs a little bit. They are definitely dominating on both sides of the ball from what I have watched of them. And this could be a really, really good matchup. And I bet you Tom Perkovich agrees with me on that fact that he's probably finding very few flaws for Bethel as he's trying to figure out how to beat them in film review right now. So you've got that. Again, let's just review quickly the 4 games that will be coming up this weekend. Bethel at Susquehanna in the upper left. Springfield at North Central in the lower left. In the upper right, UMHB at Johns Hopkins, which is where I believe, this is where Pat will be. Mount Union Salisbury will be the game he's covering, from what I understand. Okay. And so, but UMHB at Johns Hopkins, I can't remember that matchup in my history of covering things. Can you remember that one at all?
No, I think this is the first time ever.
So, it was funny that Salisbury, Randolph-Macon, 39 years they hadn't played each other. They aren't that far away from each other, for goodness sakes. Yeah, really? That's what they said on the broadcast, 39 years. So, the playoffs gives you some interesting matchups sometimes that you assume have been played, but haven't always been. That's for sure. Yeah. We got our Friday show coming up on Friday morning, 9 o'clock, we'll be live, and as we said, we'll have a North Central and a Mount Union guest scheduled to appear, and so stay tuned for that. As I said, Bethel...
You know what's funny, Frank, real quick? When I was looking up the info on Mount Union, and it's kind of interesting, I think a lot of people forget that they were in the Stag Bowl 2 years ago. Like, they played North Central, and it was a 28-21 game. It was a game where Mount Union almost came back and tied it late. But I think, everyone's been sort of talking about, the Raiders, they lost early in the playoffs last year, had some closer calls this season, but it could be 2022 all over again. I mean, it's interesting that, these teams could be headed back for a rematch. But at the same time, the way things have unfolded, like, all the safe picks are kind of out the window now. It's just anything seems possible, which makes this process even that much more fun, if you ask me.
I'm just trying to remember here, because now you said that, why do I not remember the Stag Bowl pairings the last couple of years? I go to my handy Wikipedia thing. Yeah, North Central versus Mount Union, and that was Mary Hardin Baylor North Central in 2021. That's the one Kyle King and company had won. Okay, so they didn't repeat in 2022 when Kyle was pretty banged up in that playoff run. But yeah, it's a good point. And, was that in Canton, if I remember correctly? Canton? No, this was Annapolis. That's right. Was Mount Union. Annapolis, Maryland.
It was at the Naval Academy.
Navy. Yep. So good point. But JB, should be fun Friday. Again, to compare these games, very diverse types of games. So even tail of tape is going to be a little bit weird to look at, because I think those numbers aren't going to tell you everything you need to know about these teams per se. And I'm curious to see how they look next to each other, if we can get that pulled off. But at the very least, we're going to have predictions, we're going to have interviews, and we're going to have you. So come join us. Thanks for joining us on our Crunch Time show. We'll see you for a live show coming up. That'll be show number 35, I believe, of the season when we get to that one. That's a heck of a run.
Lucky Friday the 13th. Can't wait. Woo! Let's go.
What could go wrong? Everything. Bye, guys.